Welcome everyone to day 3 of the PAC Conference 2025, Sustaining Commitment to Activism and Liberation. This day is all about action. My name is Lemia Abdullah and I am the Palestine Education Intern at PAC. I've also organized with PYM and SJP when I was on campus. And I'm proud to introduce the third and last session of today, Solidarity and Collective Struggle. This session right now is going to focus on Beyond Solidarity, Palestinians and their role in global liberation, which is led by Abir Sabbagh and Kalim Hawa from the Palestinian Youth Movement. Together, they will showcase how our liberation is intrinsically tied to the liberation of all oppressed peoples. In this session, we'll ask critical questions in solidarity and examine how Palestinians can confront internal biases. I'm going to turn over to them.
Thank you, Namia. You guys want the mic? Go for it. I don't want the mic.
You want to start us off?
No, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Kalim. I'm an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement in New York. Just to talk a little bit about PYM. We are a political organization of Arab youth in the far diaspora. We have chapters all across the United States, Canada, and the UK. And we struggle for the total liberation of Palestine, the return to our historic homeland, and it is a political organization that includes members from all of the Arab nations. So as you don't have to be a Palestinian youth to join, you can be from everywhere else. We do political education, mobilizations, and campaigns, fundraising for our people, and our overall view is that our focus is on essentially reanimating the struggle here in the diaspora and essentially recommitting to the national liberation struggle, to see our people as part of it, not separate from it, struggling here and becoming lifelong strugglers for Palestine.
Oh, okay, we have to stand here. Thanks, Kalim. Hi, everyone. My name is Abir. I work here at PAC, and I'm also a PhD student at Rutgers. And a lot of my both scholarly and activist experience has been in solidarity movements and the Palestinian movement. So if you didn't notice, we combined both sessions for today in somewhat of a true practice of solidarity. One, because it's a little bit late, and two, because we just have a lot of really important things that we want to share with everyone. We figured it would be more fruitful to have a full conversation together. We're still going to stay within the same time slots, so no worries. So what we're going to start off with is a little bit about just how, as the title says, what are Palestinians' role in the global liberation movement, and how does that kind of come naturally in just what the Palestinian struggle is and the Palestinian movement is. So you can just see we have some 4 main points that we really want to get across. We have a grounding activity to start us off. We're going to talk a little bit both theoretically and examples of shared struggles. How are they intertwined? We're going to talk about Palestine as a galvanizing issue, and what we mean by that is why and how does Palestine engage such a wide sector of society and such a diverse sector of society. So especially in the last year or so, we've seen almost every part of whatever we're involved with, hopefully talking about Palestine. So whether it's health workers, students, people in different institutions. So we're really just going to walk through why and how that is, and then we're going to end with just another quick kind of activity or personal reflection, I guess, of how do we recommit ourselves, no matter who we are and where we are, to not just the Palestinian movement, but all movements. So very quickly, I just want to start us off. Also, can everyone see this well? Should we turn off the first light, or it's fine? It's good, okay. So we're just gonna take a couple minutes. This is gonna be personal reflection. You all should have pen and paper. You can write down, you can just think through it, you can write on your phone. And then if you're comfortable, we'll do a couple large group share outs. We want us to first think through what does solidarity mean to you? I know we probably asked that a lot, but really thinking, especially after the last couple of days of this conference, what does it mean? And how, if it has it been inspired by the movement for Palestine, if at all? And then the second piece of that, which falls falls well under the second question, is what are ways that Palestinians themselves practice, model, and inspire solidarity. So whether that's Palestinians on the ground, Palestinians in the diaspora, or both, how do Palestinians teach us what solidarity looks like? So we'll just take a couple minutes, and then if anyone wants to share, you can just raise your hand and we'll share. I don't know what time it is. And we can start sharing at any point. So whenever anyone's ready, you just raise your hand. Yeah, Mona, go ahead. Start us off.
First, thank you all for being here. This is very beautiful gathering, so I
Thank you,
appreciate
Mona.
it. This is an example of solidarity, of course. People from all different backgrounds here for the same reason, for collective care, community care. And I think Palestinians practice that and model that on a daily basis, even in Gaza. Today, with the little resources they have, we see artists painting murals and shouting out global issues. Not only, even though they're the ones who are going through the genocide, they care about everybody else's problems as well, right? And even like I show my students this, like on the apartheid wall in Bethlehem, there are murals of people like George Floyd. Right? He can't breathe, we can't breathe. Right? So they see common struggles all over the world and they like elevate that. So they're really a perfect example of solidarity.
Yeah, that's a beautiful example, yes. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But art is a huge way of showcasing solidarity that we've definitely seen by Palestinians, both on the ground and here. And it's a very powerful tool, especially when occupation and oppression literally takes everything away from you, and a lot of times takes things like the colors of the Palestinian flag or the Palestinian flag itself or other symbols of resistance being banned and being targeted. You have to be creative, and so many people do that through art. Thanks, Moni. Anyone else? Yes.
Peace. To add to that, during the Vietnam uprisings between like 2012 and 2015, Palestinian organized revolutionaries were sharing tips to folks about how to deal with tear gas and how to deal with repression from the police firsthand, like having experience. So if you share it.
Yes, exactly. We also have that, you are beating us to it, but yes, that's a perfect example of literal tactics that are being shared. So again, understanding that it's not just our struggles are similar, it's literally the same tools of oppression are being used against us and are being shared, and so we also have to share our tactics of resistance and protest. Yes.
There's a long history of Palestinian Puerto Rican liberation solidarity, like decades long. Here in the diaspora, but also Puerto Ricans and Palestinians visiting each other in their indigenous lands.
Yes.
And the last thing I was going to say is all liberation movements, particularly now, have learned so much from Palestinian Sumud and the depth of revolutionary optimism that Palestinians hold, which is incomparable and beyond anything that I think that liberation movements in other places have developed at this point.
Yeah, I love that answer. From what you all are sharing, it's important to know there is such a long history of this shared struggle and this sharing of struggles and resistance tactics, which is really important. If you were here yesterday, we talked a little bit about how sometimes this work feels very isolating, and we talked about how we need a reminder of our community and a reminder of our solidarity networks that aren't just happening now and contemporary, but have been happening historically. And I think reading that and learning that makes it feel less isolating, at least for me. And that's a big part. And I love revolutionary optimism. I'm going to start using that because that is something that when we say Palestinians teach life, I think that's part of what we mean by that, right? Is how to continue resisting. And Sumud means resilience and steadfastness. So how do we keep in those practices even when everything seems very dark and heavy, which it is. Okay, thank you all. We're going to transition, but we can continue thinking through these. We're going to go into just some, just a bit theoretical of what do we mean by shared struggle, even though I feel like a lot of you already know what we mean by that, and then some specific examples. So I'm going to hand it to Karim.
To me? Okay.
Yes.
All right. The Palestinian people know what it means to be shot while unarmed because of your ethnicity. Okay, so it seems like people know some of the canonical examples of solidarity, so we won't spend too much time on this, but really the main message we wanted to convey with this slide is that the Palestinian struggle is a struggle for the entire world and for its oppressed peoples. And oftentimes the connecting point that Palestine offers is an understanding that can be a bit difficult to see from within the United States, which is the way that imperialism governs so much of our lives and the lives of the global poor and working class people, and how that system of imperialism by design has been making populations, turning them into surplus populations, putting them in prisons, putting them in ghettos. We mentioned Puerto Rico, like the Financial Control Board in charge of Puerto Rico, essentially treating the island as a testing ground for how they want to manage utilities and extract further money from them. So it's a global system of extraction, and one of its products is people who are made surplus, and therefore their lives are expendable. And Gaza, I think, for a lot of people, becomes an example of that, like a very visceral example of that, and that's why I think the examples that were mentioned are so striking for people, because you have those in Gaza who may have lost everything in, say, 2014, who are turning around and seeing the police brutalize and lynch black people in the United States, and they are sharing in that experience of pain. They're exchanging advice and tactics, and they do that because there is that shared experience, basically, of being rendered surplus by this system.
I have
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is this our next slide?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have more to say on this one, but
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, maybe I'll just say we have on the table, just we thought it would be a good example for everyone, is a copy of this popular movement paper called the New York War Crimes that an organization called Writers Against the War in Gaza makes. This is the 15th issue. It's for Land Day. And the reason, so we have a copy for everyone if you wanted to take one home, but the reason we wanted to point this out is, so you have, part of this issue, you have a dispatch from someone in the Dafe who attended the most recent prisoner exchanges and shared a write-up and photos from those prisoner exchanges. And on the second to last page, you have Leonard Peltier's call for solidarity from federal prison. And for those who don't know, Leonard Peltier is an indigenous struggler and political prisoner here in Turtle Island, and he's basically addressed this issue of global solidarity, and this was released in 1982. So we are essentially featuring it alongside the Palestinian prisoner releases to talk about that shared experience of imprisonment and how the prison has functioned in Palestine in similar ways that it does here, which is a tool for for basically a counterinsurgency tool for anyone who resists this system to be placed in prison, and also as a tool that facilitates more theft of land. So for Palestine from the 30s to the present, the prison has been an engine for the theft of land and to put many of our people who struggle against Zionism into prison. Okay, I'll try to go quickly through this, but so these were the points we wanted to make about like what we mean when we say shared struggle. So the first point was technologies of subjugation. So what are some examples that you can think of technologies that are either developed on Black or Indigenous people or immigrant communities in the United States that are then used in Palestine and in Gaza, and vice versa? So what are some things that come to mind?
Facial recognition.
Facial recognition, yeah. Yeah.
I do Palestinian Puerto Rican organizing, but so I'm going to keep talking about Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
but the bombs that were tested in one of Puerto Rico's islands of Vieques, mostly during NATO, are used consistently to bomb Gaza.
Yeah. Yeah, on the facial recognition point, there's most recently, so Microsoft and Intel have both made recent acquisitions of massive Israeli technology companies. So they are buying, so most recently Microsoft, Google, I mean, not Microsoft. Google purchased for $32 billion an Israeli startup that basically does cloud software and technological tools, and that basically means they are going to be absorbing hundreds of Israeli intelligence officials into Google in the coming years. This is the largest sale, startup sale that Israel has ever had. And these types of technologies, like the facial recognition technologies that are tested in checkpoints, they're refined, and then they are used they're used at the border, they're used in prisons here, they're used to govern a lot of our lives, and vice versa. So when we read from some of our political prisoners in Palestine, they talk about how the technologies that were used in the prison during the Second Intifada were learned from the American prison system. So that means they were originally tested on primarily Black and working class communities here in the US. And Nasmi Al-Day talks about how the prison, because she had been imprisoned both in Palestine and in the United States, how the prisons in the US were in some ways worse. So this is, that's what we mean when we talk about technologies, basically like how money and knowledge is shared between the settler colony and the imperial core to strengthen both of their projects of population management, which is point 2. And that is, we don't have to go too much into that, but that's that idea essentially of how people what is happening in Gaza right now is going to become a model for how to manage, and has already been a model, but it's going to accelerate as a model for how the US will deal with undesirable people and how the West will deal with undesirable people, whether it's immigrants, it's the securitization of the border, or people who have been ghettoized or put in prison and who might be resisting. And we're hearing about a lot of the police violence in prisons here in New York State in recent months. The final point is repression. So the thing that probably everyone has been thinking about is the recent detentions by ICE of certain Palestine activists on campuses. We had Fordham today, Columbia, UCLA, all across the US now. But of course, ICE is not new to our communities. And the lesson here is about the relationship that ICE has with any type of popular struggle is its use as essentially tip of the spear. So like, how can you use, in this moment, Palestine, because it is confronting the state in a very direct way, how can you use it then as an opportunity to strip laws and protections across entire communities? And again, this historically has been done in response to the strongest site of struggle in the US, which has been black struggle. So it forms the base for expanding surveillance and policing against our communities and others. And now we should be conscious of the ways Palestine is being used in precisely the same way to make it easier to do these things. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about like what we really want to share with this workshop, and I know it's been mentioned a bit throughout the days. Obviously, we talked about Mahmoud Khalil, and I think we were talking about how, again, like ICE is not new, and these things are not new. But I think what made it so powerful, I guess, in a not good way, is that it could literally happen to anyone. Like I think every student activist, anyone who's done Palestine, I know we were just having a conversation in the classroom with some SJP people. I don't know if Barry's still here, like who are getting posted on Instagram, and people on Canary Mission. Like, okay, that could literally be me, and that it's getting so much closer. It keeps getting closer, and so just remembering that, and if it happens to me, it can happen to you, and if it happens to you, it can happen to me. And that's really like the tenets of why, again, because these systems and these networks are working and relying on each other, we also have to work and rely on each other. This very quickly, this is a very academic, theoretical thing that I did when I was really studying these things, but the only reason I share it, I'm not gonna go into it, is what I was trying to do is show how a lot of these isms and these really awful things that we were talking about do lead to something, and that is our resistance and solidarity, and our shared resistance and collective solidarity. Yes?
Could I just ask, how would you define biopolitics in this situation?
So I would actually define that as what Karim just talked about in terms of population management and control. How do we deal with what we call quote-unquote disposable people and undesired communities? And that could be through like health systems. We know that there's like disparities within our health systems. That could be through who has access to certain food and who doesn't. Things like that. But that's really the point of this little chart, I guess, is show that these are all connected, but they are leading to our connected resistance and liberation, and they have to, because we can't let them win, basically. They have to lead to something, and that's really what we do together and what we're doing here. We're gonna skip this just because I want to make sure we have enough time for everything, but if I just speak as you have anything that comes to mind, we're not gonna like pause for it. So we're going to go into what makes Palestine a galvanizing issue, and I'm going to hand it back to Karim.
Okay. So the first thing we wanted to talk about was the student movement.
I have the clicker, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So here's a photo from the action last week that the Columbia students did in support of Mahmoud Khalil, who was abducted by ICE with collaboration by the university. So we start here because it's on a lot of people's minds. There's immense pressure being faced by the student movement, but I wanted to talk about it for a very particular reason. So why did the student movement, why was it so, let's say, successful at putting Palestine at the center of left struggle in the United States and in the media during those spring and summer months of the student intifada? Part of the reason is because it posed a direct threat to the system and to the universities that had been basically taken over through time by these corporate boards, and essentially being used as vehicles to make money. When you read the students who put their bodies on the line, who built the encampments, they took on a very particular tactic, which was to seize public space. And they did that, they said, because the world we live in, public space is becoming harder and harder to find. The availability of parks and public bathrooms and places for people to convene has been shrinking as our world gets taken over more and more by technology and by finance. And they chose to reclaim those public spaces on their campus. And when they were asked where they were inspired to take on that tactic, almost all of them in their interviews cited the George Floyd uprisings. They said that was their inspiration for taking on this particular tactic, and they understood why reclaiming public space was so threatening to the entire world that we live in. And so there's something there about the reciprocal nature of the tactics that we're facing. And then at the same time, the way the repression that is following is connecting movements, because we know, as was mentioned, that like ICE's the acceleration of ICE and deportations across the United States is not primarily targeting us as Palestinians and as Arab. It's not. We are facing, and it's not even the first time in our movement's history that this has been used against us. Obviously, we know about the LA 8, we know about past examples, but primarily this is affecting other communities. And so thinking about when we talk about developing sanctuary or using some of the tactics for protecting people in our community from ICE, we need to be learning from others who have had many more, a much wider spread and longer experience of this type of repression, and that will make us more effective to show up for one another and for them. So that was it for student.
I got it.
Okay. Yeah. The second was arms embargo. So one of the big movement demands that has come out in this moment has been for an arms embargo against Israel. I want to just share a little bit about this, because I think it's something that it's really important for us to understand conceptually. A foreign military sale is basically when the US government offers up money to the IOF to purchase weapons from US arms manufacturers. So actually, with a foreign military sale, Israel is not spending any money. It's US taxpayer dollars, public dollars, being transferred essentially to the private military contractors in the US. So it is a transfer of public money into private money, and those weapons are then shipped to be used against our people. So one of the aspects then, when those arms are used in Gaza or in Palestine, they can be declared battle tested and then sold to the rest of the world. So Gaza becomes a laboratory for these weapons companies. They get to say, this new laser or bomb or whatever it is has been tried on the battlefield, and that makes it easier for them to sell it to the rest of the world. And Israel trains the police forces and the armies of many repressive and pro-capitalist, pro-West governments across the world. They, for example, they ship armored vehicles and weapons to Honduras or to Morocco. And why that's important is because they're all ultimately connected by networks of shipping and flight companies. That's how these things get from the United States to Israel and back. So in the case of Morocco, for example, every week a boat leaves from Elizabeth, New Jersey, the port of Elizabeth, New Jersey, carrying one of these armored vehicles that they're using in Gaza, and there's our men in Jabalia in the back of one of these armored vehicles. Every week it leaves from Elizabeth, New Jersey, it crosses the Atlantic, it stops in Tangier in Morocco, and then it goes to Haifa, and it goes to the army there. Then in return, Israel sends back drones and other technologies to the Moroccan government, who has been buying them for years. So we don't need to know all the specific details about it when we talk about arms embargo, but we need to understand that the things that we see being used against our people in Gaza, they're affecting all populations globally, and that there are sites in all of our communities that are responsible for this, and that should be a source of responsibility for us too. And so we know, PYM has a campaign against Maersk, which is the shipping company that owns the port in Elizabeth. Pal Auda has a campaign against Zim, which is the Israeli shipping company. So both of these ships leave from New Jersey, and that's I think all I wanted to say about arms embargo. Oh yeah, and then just to let you know, so the Maersk ship, we've been able to identify parts of the F-35 jet, which is used in Gaza. They are on their way to Israel right now. They're going to be arriving in New Jersey on April 12th. We are calling for essentially a car caravan to mobilize to the port. So if anyone is in the community here wants to join that car caravan, it's not a high risk action. We're just going to be driving around the port to make the message clear to people. So if you're interested in participating on April 12th, you can come talk to me after the presentation. Okay, and then, yeah, I think we can skip this. This was just to say that in a moment like this where Trump is repressing so many aspects of society, what through immigration or healthcare and everything else, like the infrastructure that we've established as a Palestine movement over the decades of our struggle, but also very explicitly over the last 2 years, can and will be used to help everyone. And we need to show up just as strongly for protests against immigration detention in other communities as we do for the Gaza protests, because not just because they're related, but because we're in this together and it's a shared enemy.
Thank you so much, Karim. I actually just learned a lot too from what you just shared. I think here we can maybe pause for a minute. I think that was a lot to digest and take in. See if anyone has questions, thoughts as we transition to Zeli's portion. We did have one, this was kind of a closing personal reflection and activity of how do we recommit ourselves to the struggle, but I actually think it might be best to end the entire session maybe with this. So we can do some questions as we pull up and prepare for the second part of the presentation. Or we could just take a moment. Yeah.
They're the shipping company. Who are they shipping from? Who's the arms? Are the arms manufacturers also in New Jersey, or are they the company in Virginia?
No, so Lockheed Martin in Texas, that makes the parts of the F-35, they ship them to Israel on Maersk ships. Maersk is the shipping company. With the case of Zim, for example, Zim ships carry those armored trucks that I showed with the Palestinian prisoners, our people in Gaza. Those come from Wisconsin. So they come by train from Wisconsin here to New Jersey. They get on a Zim ship and they go to Israel.
Is Zim just ZIM?
ZIM, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a general question, especially for myself. Sometimes it's you look at the details and the details themselves are so overwhelming. But then kind of taking an aerial perspective for the layperson who's it's a complicated issue, they've been at it for some time on two sides. I mean, if what your claims are true, what has the U.S. or Israel really to gain in Gaza or Palestine? Because we see that there's weapons being manufactured, so that's one gain. Some people are saying there's oil there, that's another gain. Is it multi-tiered? What is their what do they want? You know what I'm saying? How do you have that conversation?
Yeah.
Do you want to take that off?
Okay, this is a huge question.
Needs a microphone.
Okay, I would say a couple of things. I mean, how we think about it. So there's two interests. There's the interest of imperialism, which is Israel supports American interests in the Arab world, all across the Arab world. It's like a forward base for the American military. And so that's a big one. They will go to war against Yemen, Lebanon, etc., because they want to support specific governments in the Middle East that will make their system stronger. Basically, they want to be able to make more profit, and they do that when they have friendly governments and not governments that are resisting against them. So that's one role that Israel plays, is to punish basically any community of people or government that tries to oppose them, which is why they targeted parts of South Lebanon so horrifically, because those were people who were standing against the Western system. So that's one clear example. The second is the racism of a settler colony is its own logic too. That it's not just about the profit, but also because Israel is a settler colony that wants to seize Palestinian land, they will go above and beyond in targeting Gaza, more than they might need to if it was just about making money, right? So they will be, some of the sadism, some of the videos and photos and torture of our prisoners is about breaking the spirit of the Palestinian people to make it so that they don't resist. Because you have a community that has, in Gaza, that has been that has been solid, but also has been the heart of our resistance struggle. And they want to break those people's spirits so that they don't resist Zionism in the future. So then in that case, it's not necessarily about a profit motive, but it is about preventing populations from feeling they have hope to continue struggling. So they will be, that's what the extra, the sort of racist core of Zionism comes out, I would say.
Yeah, and if I can add to that last point, I think it's not just for Palestinians to not resist, for anyone to not resist. Because if you look at the fear mongering of what's happening to students who are fighting for Palestine, but they're also fighting against all the other isms, racism and capitalism and everything else that is harming us. And especially I think since 2020, we've really started to think about like, what are all the ways from COVID and George Floyd and Palestine, like all of our struggles are interconnected. And it's a fear mongering tactic to say like, look what we're gonna do to them. You shouldn't be speaking out either. If you wanna protect yourself, you shouldn't speak out about anything and just kind of go with the machine that we are in. So yeah, it's all a tactic to kind of keep us down, which makes it harder. And obviously we have to be strategic and we have to be safe so that we can continue the work. And that's what we do in spaces like this. So I want to invite up Amir, who is a PAC community member, who's going to officially introduce our next speaker, who I don't think needs an introduction for many people, but still we are going to give an official introduction to. Oh God. You can use the clicker if you need right now.
Welcome everybody. My name is Amir Alba. I've been an intern with PAC with both the advocacy and community engagement internship, and I've also done the grassroots organizing internship. I'm currently the vice president of the Students Justice for Palestine at William Patterson University. Today we'll get into the second half of our third and final session for today with Zali Imani. So he's going to be talking about solidarity and collective struggle, service not savior, centering Palestinian voices in the fight for liberation. So Zali will showcase how solidarity is more than just words, that it is a commitment to tangible, impactful action. This workshop will explore the practicalities of true solidarity with Palestinians, emphasizing how to center Palestinian leadership in our activism. Zali Imani is a community organizer and educator living in New Jersey. Zali has served in diverse K-8 settings as an English/math teacher and curriculum developer. Most recently, Zali has been organizing against anti-Black state violence with Black Lives Matter Patterson. He is also a co-founder of the Black Liberation Collective, a collective consisting of Black students who are dedicated to transforming institutions of higher education through unity, coalition building, direct action, and political education that has initiated the hashtag Student Blackout movement across campuses in the United States. So without further ado, let's give it for Zali Imani. Thank you.
All right, peace everyone. Thank you for having me. Again, my name is Zali Imani. I'm really glad and thankful to be here with you today. I also want to give it up for the presenters before me because I really think they set the stage about what we're going to be talking about going forward. So this is called service, not savior. And that's really important for how we're going to be going on, not just for today, but in our movement. Because oftentimes what we see in our movement is that sometimes an incident occurs, an issue occurs, and everyone gets upset. Everyone wants to do something. So there may be a rally, a protest. There may be days of rallies and weeks of rallies. And you see hundreds of thousands of people at these rallies. But then as the time goes on, things start to die down. There's less rallies, less protests, and things die down. And the powers that be know this. They know this cycle. And they get able to wait things out. They know you may be coming angry at the city council meeting for that one time, maybe a couple times. But if they sit and nod their head enough, they'll tire you out, and you'll never speak again until the next viral moment that happens. You have to wait for the next person to get killed by police. You have to wait for the next viral bombing to transgress on your Instagram. And we don't want to do that no more. We don't want to wait until tragedy occurs for us to be in community with one another. We need to be in community with one another all the time, because that's where our strength lies. So before we begin, I want to start off with a land and labor acknowledgement to center us and ground ourselves for today. We acknowledge that we are on the land that belongs to the Lenape people who have been caretakers of this place long before colonization and continue to fight against ongoing erasure and displacement. We also acknowledge that the wealth and infrastructure of this country was built through the forced labor of enslaved Black people and the exploitation of Black labor that continues today. This wealth taken through violence and coercion is used to maintain systems of power and oppression both here and abroad. Naming the truth matters. It is a refusal to accept the lie that this exploitation is natural or inevitable. It's a commitment to challenge systems of domination and work toward justice and liberation. So this is going to be more of a workshop that's going to be taking place. So I really want to establish some community norms in here so that we're going to make space take space. That means be mindful of how much you're speaking. If you tend to speak often, take a step back. If you're quieter, step forward. One mic. Respect the speaker, but not interrupting. Listen fully before responding. Value all experiences. Everyone's perspective matters. Everyone has their own ideas. Share from your own experiences and respect others' truths. Challenge ideas, not people. Disagreeing is fine, but stay focused on ideas, not personal attacks. That's something we always say in the movement. Let's stop turning up on each other and turn up against on the system. One got to go. Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. I'm not even going to say the last name. Only one got to go. Only one. I'm making it hard for you guys. Only one. Turn and talk to one at each other's table. Which one you think is going to go? Y'all want to shout out who's going to go? I hear some people say Netanyahu. All right. Anyone want to shout any names out?
Are they all in the same room? Or?
All right. So we got some people up there: Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. We probably hate all of them, but this is how this is something that goes going forward. But here's this question I want everyone to look at right now, seriously. It says, what, if anything, do these struggles have to do with Palestinian liberation movement? Oftentimes, we see people organizing about anti-racism, they stay in their silo. People organizing about disability justice in their silo. Environmental justice, indigenous land back. Everyone's organizing, doing phenomenal things, but we're all not always in communication with one another. So I want to give like 2 minutes for everyone at your individual tables to really have the discussion about what, if anything, do these struggles have to do with the Palestinian liberation movement right now. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes for that.
I can think of so much. I mean, just off the top of my head, anti-racism, Israel was literally established as a country of Jewish society where everybody else is beneath it. So it's hard to not be racist and have something like that in place. Yeah. Think about what organizations and themselves with racist. They literally go hand in hand. Islamophobia doesn't
And disability justice too is like obviously really important for environmental not only just like birth, but like being open or like being privileged, not just people like they don't really
like discriminate on who you are, but like
All right. So let me have you guys focus your attention back up here. So the original question was, what, if anything, do these struggles have to do with the Palestinian liberation movement? We just have a couple up there right on the board. Does anyone want to give me some answers about what they have to do with the Palestinian liberation movement? Anyone brave? Want to go first before I call people's names? Because I only know like 3 people's names. I'm on over here.
Well, I said first off, Palestinians, every Palestinian is a human being, indigenous to that land. So right from that point, all 5 of those issues intersect, but people have a hard time seeing that because if you lack the awareness, so much effort is put into dehumanizing Palestinians, but once you recognize these people, you'll see how every Palestinian woman has gone without period products. Women have given birth. There's no hospital for them to give birth in.
Right.
Disabled Palestinians have also been displaced from their homes, living in camps. What about their rights? They don't have access to the help that they need, the things that we have privileges for here in the U.S. Or a wheelchair.
Right.
A cane to walk with. A ramp to get up the stairs. Like basic things. All of that's going to be done when you're in school.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone want to follow up on that or add on to it? I'm going to get you and then in the back.
Adding on to what my sister said, like disability is also in the form of the trauma that they're experiencing.
Right.
Like, in America, I mean, I have the privilege of being able to access therapy. There's so many people in Palestine, if not all of them, that are experiencing everyday trauma, and this will affect them for the rest of their lives. Like, and they don't have these accessibilities that are needed. They need this help, and they're being ignored by all these people around the world. Like, it's just insane to me that we're able to go upon our everyday life, and all these things are important to us or to so many people, but they stay silent, like it's mentioned. And in return, like when you think about indigenous land or injustice, like Palestinians have been showing support for American issues for so long, and we've been giving them very little in return as a country.
Yes, want to say something?
So I'm thinking about environmental justice in
Yeah.
the context of after the resistance is successful and like the land is taken back.
Right.
The land also has to be healed, right? It has
Mhm.
to be restored. The soil has to be restored. The air has to be purified. And this is like before you even get in the conversation about like removing the rubble, right? Like the actual quality of life and the environment has to be restored. So that's kind of what's coming to my mind for environmental justice. And that's going to take decades, right? Like
Right.
even a century plus or so.
Yeah, everything they've been saying so far, I think is amazing. And you made me think about when we think about therapy, when people usually, like soldiers, when they come back, to their country, they're experiencing post-traumatic stress syndrome. But when you think about, what Palestinians are going through, there is no post-traumatic stress, right? Because post signifies the end. And what they're experiencing is like an ongoing trauma, daily. So there's no real post-traumatic stress syndrome. And another thing that I thought should be added on here too, what about like animal rights activists? Like, where are the animal rights activists when it comes to Palestine? They should be really upset and up in arms about what's going on right now in Palestine, but they're absent from this discussion. And why? Right? Yeah.
I think my group, like, we just had this kind of like epiphany moment where like all those topics are happening at the same time in Palestine. That's kind of what like makes it feel like a heavy topic. At the same time, I think we've kind of been dehumanized ourselves because we separate
Right.
that there's no cohesion. And it's so crazy how we're just like, we've kind of, that's become so normalized for us to look at them as separate compartments, disparate, without looking at it all as like one integrated system.
Right. And amazing that you said that, because it's a dehumanizing process that's happening here in this country, how we look at activism. Like, I'm a climate justice activist. and that's it, right? Or I'm this type of activist. I'm an animal rights activist. That's it. But no, we're a human being. All these things are interconnected. Yes.
To add on to the disability justice piece, like Israeli, like IOF soldiers will purposefully, like shoot at Palestinians' limbs to purposefully disable them. And there's a lot of tension in the disability justice realm in the United States right now because of a lot of organizations who identify as disability justice orgs refuse to speak on Palestine. There have been statements sent out, petitions sent out to say that Palestine is a disability justice issue, and so many organizations are not just Zionist, but scared to lose funding because if they speak on the connections between Palestine, they believe that they won't receive funding.
Right, and look what's happening now. They're about to lose funding anyway, right, because of Trump. So intersectional oppression. So intersectional oppression recognizes that systems like white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, ableism, and settler colonialism are interconnected and reinforce one another. To effectively challenge oppression, we have to acknowledge how those systems intersect and build solutions that address the complexity of people's lived experiences. All right. So what we're going to do in a second is we're going to create something called an action plan template. And I'm going to read this short scenario. And at your table, you can work with folks using the paper to put these words in order. It's going to be on the board in a second, in order to create something called an action plan template in order to address this particular issue. So I'm going to read it out loud. It says, Nadia is a high school student who wears a hijab. One day during gym class, the teacher pulls her aside and tells her that her hijab violates the school's dress code because it's considered headgear and unsafe physical activity. Nadia explains that her hijab is securely wrapped and does not interfere with her movement. Despite her explanation, the teacher insists that she remove it if she wants to participate. When Nadia refuses, she's marked absent for the class and sent to the principal's office. The principal sides with the teacher, saying that safety rules are in place for a reason, even though there is no official policy about hijabs. Nadia wants to challenge this decision, but she feels overwhelmed and unsupported. Some of her classmates sympathize but stay quiet, while others make comments that she's overreacting or making things political. So that's the story. So here are these words that's in random order on the board right now. You're going to place these words in the order of your choosing. I spelled that wrong. Don't mind me. To create an action plan template. Each word can be used multiple times, right? So stakeholders means people with decision-making power. It could be a mayor, city council, principal, school board. Think of people in positions of power. You need to identify what the immediate issue is. What's the larger issue going on here? Debrief means speaking to each other as far as, other organizers. Logistics means, is it going to be a town hall meeting you want to do? Do you want to do a rally? Do you want to do a sit-in? Like, what type of action do you think, or a couple of actions do you want should be organized? In media, think about social media, and you can think about mainstream media as well. Like, who would you contact if you want to contact to make this issue even bigger? So I'm going to give 7 minutes for you to talk to people at your table to just put these words in order. You don't have to come up with a full plan yet. We're going to do that later. But use these words to put like a template together. I'm going to have 7 minutes. All right? Oh, yeah. Introduce yourselves to each other, too. Be nice. Yup. Love you, brother. Good to see you, man.
Look good. Actually, could you? Actually, no, it's fine.
What?
I was gonna say if you could go back to the slide.
How would you like?
Yeah. Maybe he's like,
Yeah, I'm gonna move back. Yeah, after. Here. So I gave you a chance to come up with an action plan template. The directions were to use those words to put them in some type of order. You can use the words multiple times if it was necessary for you. But I would really love to hear what some of you came up with and why you put it in that order. So does anyone want to kind of shout out why they did what they did? Anybody? Yeah, just to order the words and why you decided to put it in that order. Oh, it's going to, and then, yep. Mm-hmm.
Alright, so we just organize the words first, but we have like an idea of what we would do with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We'll start with the issue itself, right, the girl being targeted in her gym class. And then the larger issue, so what does that connect to? Islamophobia, feminism, or whatever, like we can
Right.
connect it to. Then we'll decide who the stakeholders are. So if we're gonna logistically meet with people, who should they be?
Mm-hmm.
And so that means logistics. No, stakeholders first, then logistics. Where should we meet? Where do we need to talk about all of this? And then we would have media. So for example, if we plan an action, we want somebody to record it and share it out maybe on social media.
Right.
And then in the end, just debrief. How many people saw the action, reacted to it, asked questions?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Right here?
Yeah. So we went down from like the initial issue, and then going to like debrief, going into like a debriefing, like
Mhm.
what is the actual idea about, logistics, like how do those ideas go forward from there. Then to media, like who do we reach about those logistics?
Right.
And then that connects to maybe the larger idea, which would connect to why a stakeholder would care in the first place. Like this relates to you in this or that way.
Awesome. Does anyone have any idea about why we have, or why larger issue is really important to think about before you even do an action?
This is like who you can tap into, like how you can like build coalition, because there's other people that can't already be addressing this issue. But you want to also tap them in to help you.
That's a really key part of it. And another important part, especially when we was organizing on college campuses, is sometimes, say, a racist incident would occur, the administration would be like, oh, that's just an isolated incident, all right? But how is it an isolated incident if it's happening all across the country and all different college campuses across the country, right? But once you exactly know what the larger issue is, you may be able to discover, like, this is just not happening to Nadia in this school, or if it is happening to Nadia, it's probably happened to other students in this school, but if we don't address it, we won't be able to address it in this school and other schools and other places. We have to think systemically, because if racism and all these systems of oppression are thinking systemically, we have to think systemically as well. We can't just let people think it's an interpersonal issue when racism is systemic. So, yeah. So now we're going to use our intersectional lens and these action plans that we just came up with to address various scenarios. So you're going to stay with your group. I'm going to give each group a new scenario. And just for an example, this is one example that you guys were going to be doing, or one particular group. Naomi volunteers at a local shelter where she learns that many homeless women lack access to menstrual hygiene products. When she tries to organize a donation drive, shelter management tells her it's unnecessary and that resources should be focused on more important things. So while we're doing these types of activities, is to make you think to yourself right now that yes, you may be passionate about the Palestinian liberation movement, but how can you look at other issues that may be happening in your community and say, there is a through line here. Let me build community with these activists so that they can understand that they need to be involved in my movement as well. And this is how you're able to build community and solidarity with others. Sometimes it's going to take you have to take that step forward. Okay, so I'm going to pass this out, and as a group, you guys are going to now fully flesh these things out. So now you're going to talk about who exactly are the stakeholders, what exactly is the action you're going to take, and we're going to have 15 minutes for that, okay? How's everyone feeling so far? Feeling good? All right. Let's go right here.
We got two.
You got two?
Yeah.
Okay. Here it goes. Sorry, right here. Here we go. Activity. So, the task for the day was to use our intersectional lens and our action plan template in order to address these various scenarios. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going around in a circle, and each group is going to read their scenario, so everyone's familiar with their scenario, and they're going to go over what their plan is to address this issue. All right? So we're going to start first from this side, if possible. So just read loudly the scenario, and then what you guys came up with.
Okay, so our scenario is toxic waste exposure. Maya lives in a low-income, predominantly black and brown neighborhood near a chemical plant. More children in her community are developing asthma and other respiratory issues. When Maya raises these concerns at a town hall meeting, officials claim there's no proven link between the plant and health problems.
Alright, so in this scenario, we identified the stakeholders as the immediate elected officials, so like the city council. We identified the chemical company and their capacity to just dump the toxic waste.
Mm-hmm.
We also mentioned the EPA because it is directly an environmental protection issue, as well as the National Institute of Health, just because it's causing health effects in the community. And the issue that we had listed was that poor children are receiving asthma and other health issues due to the chemical companies' responsibility, and that the town hall isn't doing anything about it. The larger issue that we came up with is that it was socioeconomic because this is happening in a predominantly poor neighborhood. It's a racist one because it's happening in a predominantly black and brown neighborhood. It's environmental because it's most likely the result of chemical dumping or just chemical byproducts being released into the local area. It's anti-science because the town hall because the town representatives are officially denying what has been proven on multiple occasions. It's a healthcare issue because it's causing asthma and other health issues that we may not know about. And we're calling it electoral because how is it that somebody who does not care what's happening, how is it that they were appointed into power?
So for our logistics, we said that the community outreach is really important, trying to see if this, like how many people this has happened to, how many children have been affected. We wanted to do like an education, trying to get people aware and try and like tell them like what is happening, like where it's coming from, like why it's happening and stuff like that. And then we also said a protest against the chemical plant itself, like trying to actually do, like make a physical awareness, like something that they can't ignore, really. And then for media, we said we were going to contact a local paper, or like local media, and especially black and brown local media, like trying to get them involved, trying to get them aware of what's happening in a black and brown neighborhood. What did you say it was?
Extinction Rebellion. So you can just say like environmental or social justice groups.
Yeah. So like I guess reaching out again, like environmental groups and like local, like New Jersey media, like or news stations and stuff like that, trying to get like more awareness around the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Anyone clap it up for them, please? So, as we continue to go on, I really want your brain to start thinking like, how can I connect this to like the Palestinian liberation movement? Because I know that some of us are already thinking about, listening about this environmental racism, about how some of these stakeholders, they're saying, oh, what's happening is not a big issue, and how that similarity is happening elsewhere as well. So thank you for that. Pass it on to the next group. To say your scenario loud, and then
Perry poverty and homelessness. So Naomi volunteers at a local shelter where she learns that many homeless women lack access to menstrual hygiene products. When she tries to organize a donation drive, shelter management tells her it's unnecessary and that resources should be focused on more important things.
The issue that we identified is a lack of menstrual products.
Mhm.
The larger issue being reproductive injustice. We were thinking of who does this affect. We were thinking about the shelter residents, the shelter workers, like the janitors, the community members, etc. We were thinking about elected officials, like who can we kind of bring in here in a way that will benefit them, but also benefit the shelter in receiving what they need. So logistically, we decided to start off with a drive potentially. Think about like community organizations that might want to provide some type of like resources. And then media, we were thinking more so like what are some like benefit that a community organization or an elected official could get for actually investing in this type of thing. And then we debrief and see if it was more work than it maybe is sustainable.
Yeah.
Revisit.
Oh, sounds great. All right, well. Thank you. Last group at this table.
So ours is titled A Call for Help. A 27-year-old black man experiencing a mental health crisis calls 911 for assistance, stating he feels unsafe and overwhelmed. Police arrive and within minutes fatally shoot him, claiming he was armed with a knife. Though witnesses say he was holding a kitchen utensil, his family and friends are devastated and want accountability, but are unsure how to start. So, we kind of learned a lot from the previous kind of like brainstorm that we had, so we kind of changed the direction we were taking and the order of how to start and where to go from there. So we started with the issue at hand, but we then, in order to make it more effective, immediately connected it to the larger issue at stake, which we, kind of like just whittled down to this is like a Black Lives Matter movement issue, it's a mental health issue, issue perhaps with authority in the cops and how they handle situations. Then we thought it would be best to debrief and to think about what stakeholders could help us organize the outcome that we want effectively. And so we kind of all together organized with, thought like, okay, mental health organizations would be great, again, like Black Lives Matter, or any sort of, people of color movement, and also organizations that hold the cops accountable, but also Rania said that this reminded her a lot of an issue that actually happened in Patterson, New Jersey, and the direction that they took was to actually reach out to the mayor, who was, we have many awesome ideas here. So, and then also hold the precincts accountable.
And that was hold the mayor accountable. The mayor is technically in charge of the police department.
Yeah.
So it was to hold the mayor accountable. No, that was it. That's all.
You try.
I try to give it a baton. But yeah, just to wrap this up. So then we thought of the logistics. We wanted to think of, because before we were like, okay, we have the issue immediately, jump onto TikTok. But then we were like, maybe that's not the best thing. So We thought logistics before media, and then, yeah, and that's it.
No, thank you. That sounds great. And this group over here?
So ours is titled No ICE. ICE agents are seen near an elementary school in a predominantly immigrant neighborhood. Parents panic, rushing to pick up their children while rumors of nearby arrests spread. Some families consider pulling their kids out of school entirely.
So first we identified the immediate issue that these families are worried for their safety, and also if their children are detained or if they are detained, and losing touch with one another, losing contact. But then the larger issue there is immigration rights and the threat that ICE poses to the larger community of immigrants, regardless of what country they're from. So we identified stakeholders as the Board of Education that has a direct responsibility to their students and their families, and then local government, and then larger state government. So when we discussed what logistics would be best, we talked about planning a neighborhood meeting amongst families, both families whose safety is being threatened and families who are U.S. citizens and maybe not at risk, but have a duty to help out those families, and especially if their children have friends who are being threatened, coming together as a community, recognizing where they can help one another, especially Abby was mentioning contingency plans, if you are privileged and don't have to worry about maybe your children being detained, you could go pick up your
That's good.
children
That's a good idea.
yourself out there if people aren't able to step outside. Examining where your power lies and what you are privileged in and how you can help one another, if it's buying groceries or helping kids who haven't been to school because they've been staying home and missing days of class. Also on a larger spectrum, connecting with immigration coalition centers, because they are who you can help represent you and argue for your rights. Because if you go to just the Board of Education, they may decline to help because they don't see it as a threat to them and they're not worried about your safety, but you can connect to organizations who are willing to help.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Anyone go up for them, please? All right. So I know the other group left, so it's all good. So thank you everyone for participating in that activity. It was pretty much twofold to show how our struggles are intersectional and also give you some real world type of practice for these types of situations. Because it wasn't just, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, right, when all these ICE sightings started happening in Patterson, and all of us were scrambling to try to figure things out, right? We was all scrambling about figure out who our community partners are, who could do Know Your Rights workshops, who could do rapid response workshops, and try to train our people after the fact, right? But what happens if we start thinking about these things now so we'll be even more prepared for when there is an environmental justice issue that may happen in our own backyard, right? We won't have to think about who we have to reach out to or what we could do. It's already in our mind about we could tap this organization or we could get involved in these organizations now. So this is what this is all about, is how do we build solidarity with one another, not when an issue starts, but let's start doing it now. So I really want you to think about that original slide that talked about disability justice, even animal rights or whoever. How can we start making those connections with different organizations and different movements now so that we can start building that community with one another so that we can grow our movement? Let's not wait till another viral video happens to grow our movement. Let's do it now. So thank you so much. So I'm going to open the floor for some questions and answers if possible. Yes?
Okay, I think you're skipping one critical thing that's been a problem in the past year and a half. You reach out to these groups, but they don't want to be associated with Palestine.
Right.
Like the environmental movement, for one.
Right.
Because I worked with them for years, and they want nothing to do with it. And so in the past few months, some of these groups Move On and Indivisible, just starting to do it. But I think the way to move, if you were going to work with these groups, convince them somehow to come to an educational movement about Palestine so they could understand it. It's not that we are not approaching them,
they or us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like a real great point. But I also want us to think about the fact that we shouldn't reduce the movement to certain organizations because the movement is bigger than that. And we always want to be able to know that there's more people who are interested, say, for example, in environmental justice who may not necessarily be involved in those groups for whatever reasons. They may not be involved in those groups because of their lack of stance on Palestine. So then how do we be able to contact or connect with folks who are not in any organizations but are still passionate about environmental justice but don't have an environmental justice home? Because again, like how you mentioned earlier, people think that if I'm passionate about environmental justice, I have to be part of an environmental organization. That's not the case. We need to start bringing people into our spaces regardless of what movement they think they are associated with. And I think that's the path forward as well. How do we open up our spaces so that everyone is involved? Any other questions? Yeah, yes.
So I was just having this conversation with my mom yesterday, because my mom, so I was talking to her about, the Palestinian movement,
Mm-hmm.
and, she was afraid about the deportation and stuff like that,
Mm.
because she immigrated here as a refugee from Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And then her immediate response, and I think this is part of the larger kind of conversation, is she was like, well, okay, it's horrible what's happening in Palestine, but what have you done for your own country?
Mm.
And I feel like a lot of people
Mhm.
are especially trying to bring different groups together,
Mhm.
they're having that discussion with themselves
Mhm.
and how to kind of make it almost, again, about cohesion. Like there's a larger picture here,
Yeah.
there's a larger movement that's going to dismantle everything
Mhm.
else. Like how to do that, or how to even start doing that.
Yeah, it all starts again with those conversations, those courageous conversations and that political education. Because this is happening in not just in your household, but households across demographics, where it's like, why should I support them? They never supported our movement, right? They never supported, I never seen them when it was outside for Black Lives Matter. I never seen them when I was outside for this, so why should I support them? And it's going to take individuals like yourself and others to be able to build those connections. And unfortunately, some people will not get with the program immediately, and you're going to have to leave them behind and just keep moving and start building your own family and finding your own tribe, and they'll come along later. I know lots of other people who are Black, right? And they wasn't with the Black Lives Matter movement in the beginning, right? They thought it was divisive, and they was even saying all lives matter. But after a while, after the education and learning more about what was going on and having a deeper understanding, then they got more involved and on the board. Same thing with the Palestinian Liberation Movement. There's tons of people who 4 years ago would have said, oh, it's an issue on both sides. Now they're saying something different. It's going to take a while, and you just have to continue doing what you're doing because people are watching. People are watching you specifically. Your friends, your family, whether they want to say so or not, people are watching how you're moving. And eventually you're going to inspire them to say, you know what, I'm going to get involved too. Yes.
I just wanted to add that no liberation movement has succeeded by only focusing on themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Historically, if we look at any liberation movement, and
Right.
so it's really unfortunate when people say well, what about our own people?
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually in support of our people,
Right.
because we are not going to be able to win by ourselves.
Right. And it's a lack of, again, history and political education. And that's purposeful. When we talk about systemic oppression works in a way that it is erasing our history, or erasing our political history. So even when you talk to a lot of Black and brown youth, they never heard of the Black Panther Party, right? They may have heard about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and in them, racism is over, right? Dr. King said a speech, racism is over, white people and Black people hold hands. That's not exactly what happened, but that's the story that they're told. And if they're not told the real story about, the Black Panther Party, they won't understand the history, deep history of solidarity across different issues and different genders and different nationalities. So once they understand the real history is about we only get free by being in connection with one another, then it's a beautiful thing, right? And going into history about international movements, that there's a reason why the America was so against Pan-Africanism, why Pan-Arabism was so destroyed, right? Because there was a whole movement going on in the Arab countries and the African countries to turn their back on capitalism and imperialism. So why did all these assassinations start happening around these same times, and all this underdevelopment happening? It's a reason, but our younger folks don't know about that history, so it's going to be up to us to teach. So thank you, everybody.